the smell of formaldehyde mixed with the salty aroma of the sea coming in through the half-open window. My hands trembled as I held the scalpel over the still warm body of Mateo, the 16-year-old boy who had disappeared 3 days ago. His glassy eyes stared at me with an expression of eternal terror, the same expression everyone had in their final moments. His skin still had that characteristic grayish color, the final result of my touch. I ran my gloved fingers over his, cold face, feeling a warm satisfaction spread through my chest. Mateo had been special. He had resisted for almost 15 minutes before his life force was completely drained. Most couldn't last even 5. His muscles contracted violently when he realized what was happening, but I kept my hands pressed firmly against his wrists, watching his eyes dilate in despair. "Valentina, what have you done this time?" My father's hoarse voice echoed through the basement stairs. I smiled, slowly removing my black leather gloves. "Just an experiment, Dad. Wouldn't you be proud?" I managed to prolong the process much longer than before. Dr. Ricardo Restrepo descended the steps with trembling legs, clutching his old medical bag to his chest as if it were a shield. His deep, tormented brown eyes fixed on Mateo's body and then on me. The fear in that look gave me indescribable pleasure. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. You won't want to miss any of the disturbing stories I have in store for you. And let me know in the comments which city you're watching us from. When you've finished listening to this story, please give it a rating from 0 to 10 and comment on what you liked best. Your opinions are very important to me. Now, let me tell you about my life in Mar del Plata, specifically in the neighborhood of La Perla, where the constant smell of fish and salt mixes with the fog that rises from the Atlantic. It is here, among the old fishermen's houses, that I discovered the real meaning of power. My name is Valentina Restrepo. I'm 15 years old, and I'm probably the most dangerous creature to ever set foot in this coastal town. To others, I'm just a pale Colombian teenager with wavy black hair, cut in an asymmetrical bob and light green eyes that seem to see right through people. My body is slender, my movements feline, and I always wear expensive but discreet clothes. Dark silk blouses, tight leather pants, high boots. I always wear black leather gloves. The gloves aren't a matter of style. They're a necessity. I discovered my gift when I was 5, in Bogotá. A careless babysitter left me alone with our cat, Princesa. I was playing, stroking her soft fur, when I felt something strange flowing from her paws to my hands. It was like drinking something delicious and warm. Princesa began to meow softly, then stopped moving completely. When my dad arrived, he found me holding her stiff little body, my eyes shining with a satisfaction that, even at 5 years old, I knew I should hide. "She was sick, Dad," I lied with the rehearsed innocence of a child. I was trying to make her feel better. Dad examined Princess with his medical knowledge, but found no apparent cause of death. Of course he wouldn't. How could he explain that a child had sucked the life out of a pet through touch? It took 3 more accidents, a hamster, a bird, and the neighbor's goldfish, before Dad began to suspect something. He watched me with those cold, analytical doctor's eyes, but also with a growing fear that fascinated me. The first time I used my power on a human being was when I was 8. Our maid, Consuela, had annoyed me by refusing to make my favorite snack. I waited for her to fall asleep in the living room armchair, and then, with the morbid curiosity of a child, I placed my small hand on her exposed arm. The effect was instant and intoxicating. I felt Consuela's life energy flowing toward me like a warm, golden river. She writhed in her sleep, murmuring something incomprehensible, while her skin began to turn pale and cold. I kept my touch for only a few seconds, but it was enough to leave her weak and confused for weeks. Dad suspected something immediately. His eyes followed me around the house like those of a predator studying another predator. But there was also something else, a sick scientific curiosity that I recognized because it was similar to my own hunger for experiences. That was when Dad turned the basement of our house in Bogotá into a makeshift laboratory. He said he wanted to understand my condition, but I knew the truth. He was fascinated and terrified at the same time. "Valentina," he said one night, holding a white mouse in a small cage, "I need you to do something for me. Touch this animal, but only for a few seconds. I'll time you." I smiled, slowly removing my gloves. The mouse seemed to sense the danger, running desperately back and forth across the cage. When my hands closed around its soft little body, I felt that familiar wave of pleasure run down my spine. 3 seconds, Dad murmured, watching intently. I obeyed, releasing the animal. The mouse remained motionless for a few moments, then began to move slowly, staggering as if drunk. "Fascinating," Dad whispered, making frantic notes in a notebook. "The vital energy seems to have been partially drained, but not completely. The animal's metabolism has slowed significantly." We repeated the experiment several times, with different lengths of contact. Dad documented everything meticulously: body temperatures, heart rates, neurological reactions. It was as if I was both his beloved daughter and his most valuable laboratory specimen. But the experiments awakened something in me. The more I used my power, the more I wanted it. It was like an addictive drug, and each touch left me hungry for more. Everything changed when I started practicing on my schoolmates. At first, they were brief, seemingly accidental touches: a prolonged handshake, a warm hug, a tap on the shoulder during a conversation. The victims became tired, caught colds. Some developed unexplained anemia. Doctors blamed viruses, nutritional deficiencies, teenage stress. But when Maria Jose Hernandez, a girl in my class who always teased me, was found dead in her room with no apparent cause, suspicions began to fall on our family, especially when they found out that I had been seen talking to her the day before. "We have to leave Bogotá," my dad told me one night, his hands shaking as he packed his medical instruments. "The authorities are asking questions, and I can't protect you if they find out the truth." That's how we ended up in Mar del Plata 2 years ago. Dad bought an old house near the fishing port, where the constant smell of fish would mask any suspicious odors from his new laboratory in the basement. He set up a private medical practice on a rundown street, treating drunken fishermen and tourists with hangovers. But I knew he was just waiting, watching, documenting my progress as if I were a long-term experiment, and I was getting hungrier and hungrier. The Atlantic fog became my perfect accomplice. On the gray afternoons in Mar del Plata, I would walk the streets of La Perla studying potential victims. Lonely teenagers, frail elderly people, unaccompanied children. They all seemed so fragile, so full of vital energy waiting to be harvested. My first experiment in Mar del Plata was with a boy named Diego, 17 years old, the son of a local fisherman. He tried to impress me at a beach party by showing me how he could hold his breath for more than 2 minutes underwater. "Impressive," I murmured, placing my hand on his wet chest when he emerged. "I can feel how strong your heart is." Diego smiled proudly, unaware that his strength was literally flowing into my palms. I held him for 15 seconds before letting him go, watching him stagger slightly. "Are you okay?" I asked with feigned concern. "Just a little dizzy," he replied. "Must be the salt in the seawater." Diego died 3 days later, drowned on a calm morning when he should have been in perfect physical condition to swim. The autopsy found nothing abnormal, just sudden cardiac failure during aquatic activity. Dad read the medical report with trembling hands and looked at me with a mixture of horror and scientific admiration. "You're evolving," he whispered. "The effect is becoming more prolonged, more lethal." I smiled, adjusting my black leather gloves. "I'm just learning to be more efficient, Dad." Winter in Mar del Plata brought with it a coldness that suited my nature perfectly. The streets of La Perla were deserted after 6 in the evening, with only the sound of waves breaking against the harbor piers and the occasional cry of a seagull lost in the darkness. It was the perfect setting for my new experiments. After Diego, I realized I needed to be more careful. I couldn't just leave. A trail of dead teenagers around town, that would attract too much attention. So I developed a new strategy: smaller doses, longer-lasting effects, deaths that would appear natural weeks after initial contact. That's when I met Sofia Mendez, a shy 14-year-old girl who had recently moved from rural Argentina. She attended the same school as me, always alone during breaks, reading romantic novels under the tree in the courtyard. Her isolation made her the perfect victim. "You seem to really enjoy reading," I said, approaching her on a particularly gray afternoon. My voice sounded sweet, almost maternal. Sophia looked up, surprised that someone like me, who clearly belonged to the popular crowd, was talking to her. Yeah, it's my escape, you know, especially with the move and everything. I understand perfectly. I'm new in town too. I sat down next to her on the wooden bench, calculating the exact distance for a seemingly casual touch. It must be hard to make friends when you're different from everyone else. Sophia's eyes lit up with pathetic gratitude. Exactly. No one here seems to understand me. I understand you, I lied, gently placing my hand on hers. Even through the thin gloves I wore at school, I could feel her life energy pulsing warmly. We can be friends if you want. I held her hand for only 3 seconds, long enough to plant the seed, but not long enough to have any immediate effect. Sophia smiled radiantly, unaware that she had just signed her death warrant. Over the next few weeks, I cultivated our friendship carefully. Casual encounters in the school hallways, where a touch on the arm here, a lingering hug there, gradually drained her life force. Sophia began to look pale and tired, often missing classes due to unexplained colds. You don't look well, I would say with feigned concern, touching her forehead with the back of my hand. It's very hot. Maybe you should see a doctor. It's nothing serious, she would reply weakly, unaware that my every affectionate gesture was accelerating her decline. I'm just a little tired lately. The end came one September morning. Sophia was found in her room, apparently dead in her sleep from complications of severe undiagnosed anemia. Her mother cried at the funeral about how thin her daughter had become in recent weeks, how she always seemed exhausted. I was there, of course, dressed in black, comforting the bereaved family with soft words and comforting hugs, the role of the friend devastated by loss. She talked so much about you, Sophia's mother told me through her tears. She said, you were the only person who really understood her at her new school. She was special, I replied, allowing a few fake tears to roll down my cheeks. I'm going to miss her so much. Dad was waiting for me when I got home that night. He knew. He always knew. Another friend of yours has died, he said without looking up from the glass of whiskey he held in his trembling hands. People get sick, Dad. I can't control that. Valentina. His voice carried a warning tone I rarely heard. You're becoming careless. 3 deaths in 2 years in a small town like this. 3? I feigned confusion, but inside, I smiled. Diego drowned, Sophia had anemia, and who else? Old Mrs. Martinez from around the corner. You visited her regularly, remember? To help her with her shopping. Ah, yes. Mrs. Martinez had been a different experiment, a 72-year-old widow who lived alone with only her cats for company. I had tried a longer contact with her, holding my hands on her wrists, for almost a full minute while pretending to check her blood pressure. She was elderly, Dad. She had a heart attack, with signs of extreme physical exhaustion that didn't match her previous heart condition. He looked at me directly, for the first time in the conversation. I read the autopsy report. A colleague passed it on to me informally. A shiver of excitement ran down my spine. And what do you intend to do with that information? Dad drank the rest of his whiskey in one gulp, his hands shaking violently now. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because you're my daughter and I love you more than my own sanity. But I need you to be more careful. People are starting to talk, Valentina. Not openly, but whispers. Too many coincidences for a town like Mar del Plata. That night, in the basement, Dad showed me his new project. A series of glass jars lined up on a shelf, each containing a sample of tissue preserved in formaldehyde. Skin, hair, nail fragments, pieces of my victims that he had secretly collected. What is this? I asked, fascinated. Evidence or research? I don't know anymore. He ran his fingers over the jars like a pianist playing invisible keys. I'm trying to understand the exact nature of your gift, how it works, why it exists, if it can be controlled. You want to cure me? I want to understand you. His words came out as a broken whisper. and maybe, somehow, protect you from what you're becoming. But I already knew what I was becoming. I was evolving, refining my technique, learning to savor every drop of life energy I drained from my victims. And best of all, I was beginning to feel that I could be even more ambitious. That's when I decided I needed a bigger challenge. Someone young, strong, full of life. Someone whose death would have a real impact on the community. That's when I met Lucas Herrera. Lucas was 17, captain of the school football team, son of the local police commissioner. Tall, dark, with that confident smile typical of popular boys who had never faced real adversity. He radiated health and vitality in a way that made my mouth water with anticipation. The challenge would be to get him interested in me without seeming desperate. Lucas was used to girls throwing themselves at his feet. I needed to be different, mysterious, irresistible in a subtle way. I started by observing his patterns. He trained every Tuesday and Thursday after school, always stopped by Miss Elena's cafe before going home, and on Saturdays he helped his father at the police station organizing paperwork. My opportunity came on a rainy October afternoon. Lucas was alone in the cafe, wet from the rain, clearly annoyed at having missed practice. I approached his table with my best shy girl performance. "Excuse me," I said softly. "Aren't you Lucas? From the football team?" He looked up, sizing me up quickly. I had chosen my outfit carefully. A tight but not revealing top, dark pants that accentuated my figure, my hair slightly tousled from the rain on purpose. "Yes, it's me. And you are?" "Valentina. I'm new at school." I smiled shyly. "Do you mind if I sit down? It's really crowded because of the rain." It was a lie. There were several empty tables, but Lucas didn't seem to notice. He motioned to the chair in front of him. "Sure. You said you're new? I don't remember seeing you before." I keep a low profile. I'm not very good with crowds. I sat down, calculating the perfect distance between us. "But I've always noticed you at the games. It's impressive how you lead the team." Lucas smiled, clearly flattered. It was pathetic how predictable men were when it came to receiving compliments. "You watch the games? Good to know we have some pretty fans." I blushed slightly, another trick I had perfected. "I like sports. My dad used to play when he was younger." "And what does he do now?" "He's a doctor. We moved here from Bogota about 2 years ago." I leaned forward slightly, letting my blouse reveal just enough to keep his attention. "And you? Have you always lived here?" "All my life." "My dad's the local police commissioner." Perfect. Just the information I needed. We spent the next hour talking about trivial things, school, music, movies. Lucas was smarter than I expected, but also more arrogant. He talked about his plans. To get a scholarship to a university in Buenos Aires, about how easy it would be for him because he had everything under control. When the rain stopped, I offered to walk him home. On the way, I tripped in a puddle and instinctively leaned on his arm to keep from falling. "Careful," he said, holding me steady. For 2 precious seconds, I kept my hands pressed against his forearm, feeling the vital energy pulsing hot and strong through his skin. It was like drinking the purest nectar of the gods. "Thank you," I murmured, letting go before he could notice anything strange. "I'm a bit clumsy sometimes." "No problem. It was a pleasure to meet you, Valentina." "The pleasure was all mine, Lucas." That night in the basement, I told Dad about my new project. "The commissioner's son?" he repeated, horrified. "Valentina, have you completely lost your mind?" "Relax, Dad. It'll be different this time. More subtle, more elaborate." I carefully adjusted my black leather gloves. "I'll make it last for weeks, maybe months. It'll be my masterpiece." What if they find out? What if he suspects something? He won't suspect a thing. Lucas Herrera is convinced he's irresistible. He'd never imagined that a girl like me could be dangerous to him. Dad poured himself another whiskey, his hands shaking more violently than usual. "You don't understand the risks. If anything happens to the commissioner's son, he'll turn this town upside down until he finds someone to blame." "Then I'd better not leave any evidence, would I?" I smiled at him. The smile I knew terrified him more than any direct threat. Because Dad knew the truth about me better than anyone else. He knew that behind my light green eyes and angelic face, there was something much darker and hungrier than any monster in people's nightmares. And Lucas Herrera was about to find out exactly what I was capable of. Lucas became my obsession over the next few weeks. I studied every detail of his routine, every facial expression, every movement of his athletic body. I was like a predator studying its most valuable prey, savoring every moment before the final attack. Our encounters were carefully orchestrated, to appear casual. I would show up at Miss Elena's cafe at the same time he did, always with a book in my hand, pretending to be absorbed in reading. Gradually, he began to look for me, sitting down at the table next to me and striking up conversations on a wide variety of topics. "You read a lot," he commented one particularly cold afternoon, when the Atlantic wind made the cafe windows rattle. "What is it this time?" I held up the book. I had purposely chosen a novel about forensic anatomy. Something my father recommended. He thinks I should consider medicine. "Really? Medicine is heavy. Do you have the stomach for blood? And worse things?" I smiled enigmatically. "You'd be surprised what I can handle, Lucas." There was something in my expression that made his eyes narrow slightly, as if trying to decipher a riddle. It was exactly the reaction I was hoping, for curiosity mixed with a hint of unease. "Sometimes you talk in a different way," he said, leaning forward. "Like you know things that other people our age don't." "Maybe I do." I closed the book slowly, allowing my fingers to brush against his as he reached out to see the cover. Even through the thin gloves, I could feel his life energy pulsing strong and warm. Life has taught me that there are many things people would rather not see. Lucas pulled his hand away quickly, but not quickly enough. I had planted another seed. Over the next few days, I noticed the first subtle changes in him. A slight paleness that hadn't been there before. Occasional moments of fatigue during training that he disguised well, but which my trained eyes recognized immediately. It was like watching a work of art being created. Slow, meticulous, devastatingly beautiful. But then something unexpected happened. It was a Friday when Lucas didn't show up at the cafe. At first, I thought it was just a change in routine, but when he missed practice the following Tuesday, I knew something was wrong. Not with him, with me. "Have you heard about Lucas?" one of the girls at school commented during break. "He's in the hospital in Mar del Plata. They say it's serious." My blood ran cold. Too soon. The process was happening too fast. That night, I confronted Dad in the basement. He was hunched over a new set of vials, frantically taking notes in his notebook. "You knew this would happen," I accused him. "You knew my powers were getting stronger." Dad looked up, and for the first time in months, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not fear of me, but fear for me. "Valentina, there's something I never told you. About how you came to be with me. What do you mean?" He stood up slowly, walking over to a locked drawer I had never seen open before. From inside, he pulled out a yellowed folder containing official documents. "You're not my biological daughter." The words echoed in the basement like a gunshot. I felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. "I found you at a crime scene in Bogota 15 years ago. An entire family had been found dead. Parents, grandparents, even the dog. All with signs of extreme exhaustion, as if their lives had been literally sucked out of them. And in the middle of it all was a baby. You." My mind struggled to process the information. "That's impossible. When I tried to pick you up for the first time, I almost died. You drained so much energy from me that I collapsed at the crime scene. But there was something in your eyes, Valentina. An intelligence that shouldn't exist in a child of a few months. It was as if you had chosen to let me live. Why? Why did you take me? Why didn't you hand me over to the authorities?" Dad laughed bitterly. "Because I was young, arrogant. I thought I could study you, understand you, maybe even cure you. I forged documents, created an identity, invented a story about a wife who died in childbirth. No one questioned it. I was a respected doctor, after all. And now? Now I realize that you don't need to be cured. You're evolving, becoming more powerful. And He looked at his trembling hands. I'm slowly dying. What are you talking about? Every contact we've had over the years, every time you touched me without gloves, you drained a little bit of my life. Not on purpose, I know that. But the cumulative effect. He showed me his arms, where I could see dark veins spreading beneath the pale skin. My system is gradually failing. The revelation hit me like a cold wave. Dad was dying because of me, and I hadn't even noticed. How long do you have? A few months, maybe a year if I'm careful. That night, for the first time in years, I felt something like remorse. Not for the deaths of my victims. They had always been nothing more than disposable toys. But Dad was different. He knew me, accepted me, loved me despite the monster I was. The next day, I learned that Lucas had been transferred to a specialized hospital in Buenos Aires. The doctors were baffled by his condition. Extreme fatigue, severe anemia, partial failure of multiple organs with no apparent cause. It's as if he's being consumed from the inside out, I heard Dr. Morales comment to a colleague in the hallway of the hospital where Dad had contacts. I've never seen anything like this in someone so young and previously healthy. That was when Commissioner Herrera began his personal investigation. I want to know about every contact my son has had in the last few weeks, he told his team at a meeting that Dad learned about through his informants at the police station. Friends, schoolmates, anyone who has interacted with him. Name was on the list. Valentina Restrepo. I read in the report my dad got a copy of. Colombian student, 15 years old, daughter of Dr. Ricardo Restrepo. Seen frequently talking to Lucas in the weeks before the onset of symptoms. The net was closing in. That same week, 2 other teenagers in town began showing symptoms similar to Lucas's. Mateo Rodriguez, a 16-year-old boy who had tried to kiss me at a party and ended up getting a 5-second accident of direct contact. And Carmen Salinas, a girl who had spread rumors about me at school and was accidentally bumped into by me in the hallway several times. 3 cases in 2 weeks, Dr. Morales said in an interview on local radio. All previously healthy teenagers, all with identical and inexplicable symptoms. We are considering the possibility of an unknown pathogen. But Commissioner Herrera was beginning to suspect something different. His police instincts were detecting a pattern that the doctors couldn't see. It's not a disease, I heard. Him say on the phone in a conversation I intercepted using equipment my dad kept at home to monitor police communications. It's personal. Someone is specifically targeting these young people. And then what I feared most happened. The commissioner decided to question me personally. It was a Sunday afternoon when he showed up at our door, still wearing his navy blue police uniform, but with an expression that was anything but official. It was the expression of a desperate father. Dr. Restrepo, he said when Dad opened the door, I'd like to ask your daughter some questions about my son Lucas. Dad looked at me over his shoulder and I saw the terror in his eyes. Not terror for himself, but terror for me. After 15 years of protecting me, raising me, loving me despite who I was, he knew that the moment he had always feared had arrived. Of course, Commissioner, he replied in a surprisingly steady voice. Valentina, come here, please. I approached the door using my best shy and concerned teenager performance. I had practiced that expression in the mirror dozens of times. Hello, Commissioner Herrera, I said in a soft voice. How is Lucas? I heard he's sick. That's exactly the issue I'd like to discuss with you. His eyes studied me intensely, searching for something he couldn't define but felt was there. Can you tell me about your interactions with my son over the past few weeks? Sure. We would talk sometimes at Miss Elena's cafe. He was always very kind to me. I allowed my voice to tremble slightly. I hope he'll be okay. Did you ever touch him? A handshake, a hug, any physical contact? The question took me by surprise with its specificity. Commissioner Herrera was more perceptive than I had imagined. Well, maybe a handshake. When we first met. Why is that important? Just trying to understand the chronology of events. But his eyes never left my face, studying every micro-expression. Would you mind coming to the station tomorrow for a more formal conversation? Just to help with the investigation. That's when I knew the game had completely changed. It was no longer about experimenting on innocent victims for pure sadistic pleasure. Now it was about survival. And Commissioner Herrera was dangerously close to discovering the truth about me. The night before the interrogation was the longest of my life. Dad and I stayed in the basement until the early hours of the morning, destroying evidence and planning our escape. But we both knew it was too late. Commissioner Herrera wasn't a man who would give up easily, especially when it came to his own son. "You have to run," Dad said for the 10th time, frantically packing his medical instruments into a briefcase. His hands were shaking violently. Now, and I could see dark veins spreading across his neck. "I have contacts in Montevideo. We can give you a new identity, start over somewhere else. And leave you behind? To die alone?" The idea caused me an agony I couldn't fully comprehend. "No. Valentina, listen to me." He stopped packing and stared directly at me. "You're young, strong, you have your whole life ahead of you. I'm dying anyway. At least let me make sure you get out." "No!" The word came out like a wild scream. "You're the only person who really knows me, who accepts me for who I am. Without you, I'm just a monster alone in the world." Daddy approached me slowly as if I were a wounded and dangerous animal. "You were never just a monster to me, my daughter. You are complex, powerful, unique. But you need to learn to control the darkness inside you. What if I don't want to control it? What if I like who I am? Then you will become exactly what those who abandoned you at a crime scene hoped you would become." His words cut deep. A soulless creature with no purpose other than destruction. That morning, I arrived at the police station promptly at 9 o'clock. I had chosen my outfit carefully. A conservative navy blue dress, flat shoes, my hair tied back in a simple ponytail. The perfect image of an innocent, cooperative teenager. Commissioner Herrera greeted me in a small, windowless room with only a metal desk and 2 chairs. His eyes were red from fatigue and worry, but his posture still radiated authority. "Thank you for coming, Valentina. I know this must be difficult for you, considering your friendship with Lucas." "Anything I can do to help," I replied in a sweet, solicitous voice. "How is he?" "Not very well." He opened a folder filled with medical documents. "The doctors in Buenos Aires are baffled. They've never seen anything like this before. It must be very rare." "Yes, very rare. In fact, so rare that there have only been 3 cases reported in all of Argentina in the last 2 decades. His eyes locked on mine. "And all 3 cases occurred in cities where your family lived at the time." My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression innocent and confused. "That must be a terrible coincidence." "Coincidences bother me, Valentina, especially when they involve my son." He placed a photo on the table, Lucas in the hospital, connected to tubes and monitors, his skin that grayish color I knew so well. "I want you to tell me in detail about every interaction you had with Lucas." For the next hour, I carefully recounted our friendship, omitting crucial details and emphasizing aspects that made me seem like a shy, lovesick girl. But the commissioner was too experienced to be fooled so easily. "You wear gloves constantly," he observed during a pause. "Even in the heat of the Argentine summer. Why?" "I have eczema on my hands. It's embarrassing. Can you show me?" I hesitated for a split second, long enough for him to notice. "I'd rather not show you. It's really ugly." "I see." But his tone indicated that he didn't believe a word I was saying. "Valentina, I need you to be completely honest with me. My son's life may depend on it." It was at that moment that I sensed a familiar presence outside the room. Dad had arrived, probably worried about my delay, and with him, I sensed something else, a different energy, unfamiliar, but strangely familiar. The door opened and Dad entered, followed by a woman I had never seen before, She was tall and thin, with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that seemed to see right through people. She was wearing an elegant black suit and carrying a leather briefcase. "Dr. Restrepo," the flight attendant said, clearly surprised. "I didn't expect to see you here. I came to pick up my daughter, and I brought someone who may be useful to your investigation." Dad looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "This is Dr. Esperanza Morales from Buenos Aires. She has some interesting theories about the cases you're investigating." Dr. Morales studied me intently, and I felt a strange chill run down my spine. There was something about her that made me deeply uncomfortable. "Miss Restrepo," she said in a soft but penetrating voice, "it's a pleasure to meet you at last." "At last?" The commissioner looked confused. "I've been following cases similar to your son's for many years, Commissioner. Cases of vital energy drainage that defy any conventional medical explanation." She opened her briefcase and took out a series of photographs. Bogota, 2010, Medellin, 2015, Cordoba, 2018, and now Mar del Plata. The photographs showed crime scenes I recognized immediately, not because I had seen them before, but because I knew exactly what kind of devastation they caused. Drained bodies with that same characteristic grayish coloration. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" The commissioner was clearly skeptical. "I'm suggesting that we're dealing with something far beyond conventional medicine. Something that requires a different approach." His eyes were fixed on me. "Something supernatural." I laughed involuntarily, a sound that echoed strangely in the small room. "Supernatural? That's ridiculous." "Really?" Dr. Morales approached me slowly. "I can do a simple test if you'll allow me. Completely harmless." "What kind of test?" She took a small electronic device out of her briefcase, something that looked like a metal detector, but smaller and more sophisticated. "This measures fluctuations in the electromagnetic field around a person. Individuals with special abilities tend to generate very specific patterns." "That's pseudoscience," I protested, but my voice sounded less confident now. "Then you wouldn't mind taking the test, would you?" The commissioner was clearly interested in this new approach. I looked at Dad for support, but saw only resignation in his eyes. He had made a decision without consulting me. "All right," I said finally. "Go ahead with your ridiculous test." Dr. Morales turned on the device and began to walk around me. At first, nothing happened. But when she approached my hands, the device began to emit a high-pitched, insistent sound. "Interesting," she murmured, adjusting some controls. "Very interesting." "What does it mean?" asked the commissioner. "It means that Miss Restrepo has a completely anomalous energy signature, consistent with the patterns I've detected at other locations where similar drainages have occurred." The world seemed to collapse around me. Years of care, of meticulous planning, destroyed by a small electronic device. "That doesn't prove anything," I said desperately. "This device could be defective." "It could be," Dr. Morales agreed. "That's why I'd like to propose a more definitive test." "What test?" "I'd like you to touch something alive. A plant, for example. No gloves. No." The word came out like a growl. "I'm not participating in this circus." "Valentina?" Dad said softly. "Maybe it's time to stop running. You betrayed me." The anger I felt at that moment was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't the cold, calculating hunger I felt when draining my victims, but something hot and destructive. "You brought this woman here to hand me over." "I brought her here to help you. To help us." His hands were shaking violently now. "She can offer us protection, resources, a chance to truly understand what you are." "I know what I am. I'm your daughter. I'm the child you saved and raised and loved for 15 years. "And I still do," she said, her voice breaking. "But I can't protect you anymore. I can't protect the world from you anymore." At that moment, I felt something inside me shatter completely. The only person who truly knew me, who accepted me despite the monster I was, had decided to abandon me. I slowly removed my gloves, ignoring the alarmed looks of the others. My pale hands seemed to glow slightly in the fluorescent light of the room. "Do you want to see what I really am?" I asked in a dangerously calm voice. "Do you want to see what I'm capable of?" Before anyone could react, I reached out toward Commissioner Herrera. He instinctively recoiled, but he wasn't fast enough. My fingers brushed his wrist for less than a second, but it was enough to make him stagger and almost faint. "My God," whispered Dr. Morales, watching the commissioner lean on the table to keep from falling. "Now you know," I said, putting my gloves back on. "Now you know exactly what kind of monster you're dealing with." But instead of the horror I expected to see in Dr. Morales's eyes, I found only scientific fascination. "Extraordinary," she murmured, taking frantic notes. "Absolutely extraordinary." And it was at that moment that I understood the true nature of the trap I had fallen into. Dr. Morales wasn't there to capture or destroy me. She was there to study me. And Dad, my protector for 15 years, had handed me over to her willingly. The next 3 days at the police station were a scientific nightmare. Dr. Morales had turned one of the rooms into a makeshift laboratory, equipped with devices I had never seen before. Energy meters, thermal scanners, high-speed cameras to capture paranormal phenomena. I was kept in a special cell with walls covered in a metallic material that was supposed to contain my energy emissions. "Fascinating how your electromagnetic signature varies depending on your emotional state," Dr. Morales commented as she jotted down data on a tablet. "When you're calm, the levels remain low, but when you get angry, when they make me angry, bad things happen," I finished, for her, staring intently through the metal bars. Dad came to visit me every day, always with that look of guilt and despair that caused me a confusing mixture of anger and compassion. His condition was deteriorating rapidly. Dark veins now spread across his face, and he could barely stand, for more than a few minutes. "She promised she can help you," he said during a visit, his words slurred from the pain medication. "Dr. Morales has resources, knowledge. She can teach you how to control your powers." "Do you really believe that?" I asked, watching him lean heavily on the chair. "Or do you just want to die in peace knowing you gave me away to someone else? I want you to have a chance at happiness, at a normal life." "I'll never be normal, Dad. And you know that. Better than anyone." It was true. For 15 years, he had meticulously documented every aspect of my condition, every evolution of my powers, every life I had destroyed. He knew I wasn't a troubled teenager who could be cured with therapy and medication. I was something much more primitive and dangerous. But it was during my 3rd night in the cell that everything changed. I woke up to the sound of distant sirens and voices shouting in the police station hallways. Through the small window in my cell, I could see red lights flashing in the darkness and smoke rising from the harbor. "What's going on?" I asked. "The guard." "Fire in the fishing district," he replied nervously. "At least 3 blocks are on fire. Firefighters are saying they've never seen anything like it." A chill ran down my spine. Those weren't normal flames. Minutes later, Dr. Morales appeared, running, her gray hair disheveled and her clothes stained with ash. There was panic in her eyes, the first genuine emotion I had seen in her since I arrived. "I need you to come with me," she said, opening the cell door with trembling hands. "Now." "Why? What's going on?" "There are others like you in the city, and they're not happy with our research, others like me." The words echoed in my mind as she led me through the deserted corridors of the police station. For 15 years, I thought I was unique, an isolated freak of nature. But if there were others? We arrived at the makeshift laboratory to find much of the equipment destroyed and a window completely shattered. Through the opening, I could see figures moving in the darkness between the flames consuming the fishing district. "How many are there?" I asked. "We're not sure. At least 3, maybe more." Dr. Morales began frantically packing her most important data. "They attacked our main lab in Buenos Aires yesterday. They killed 2 of my assistants and destroyed years of research. And now they've come after me. Apparently they don't like it when one of their own is studied." She looked at me with a mixture of fear and fascination. Valentina, I need you to understand. These creatures are not like you. They are ancient, powerful, completely devoid of humanity. If they find you... What? They'll kill me? Worse? They'll recruit you. The idea hit me like a bolt of lightning. After years of feeling isolated and misunderstood, there was a chance I could find others who understood my nature. Others who wouldn't see me as a monster or a laboratory specimen, but as an equal. That's when Dad appeared at the door, staggering and panting. Valentina, you need to get out of here, now. Dad, are you okay? No, I'm not. He approached me, and I could see that dark veins now covered almost all of his exposed skin. I'm dying, my daughter. But before I go, I need to give you a choice. What choice? He took a syringe from his medical bag, a syringe filled with a dark liquid that seemed to pulsate with a life of its own. This is a concentrated sample of your own genetic material, modified with components I've isolated over the years. If you take this, what will happen? I'm not sure. It could amplify your powers exponentially. It could kill you, or it could give you complete control over your condition. His hands shook violently as he held the syringe. The choice is yours, Valentina. Stay as you are. Run away with these ancient creatures, or risk everything for a single chance to become something completely new. Through the broken window, I could hear voices approaching. Voices whispering my name in a language I didn't recognize, but which my body understood, viscerally. They're here, Dr. Morales whispered, hiding behind an overturned table. 3 figures appeared at the window. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their skin had the same translucent pallor that I possessed, but taken to the extreme, almost crystalline. Their eyes glowed with a greenish-white light, and when they moved, they left trails of shadow in the air. Sister, said the first of them, his voice echoing directly in my mind. Come with us. Come home. This is my home, I replied, surprising myself with the firmness of my response. This is not your family. The creature gestured dismissively toward Dad and Dr. Morales. They study you like an animal. They hold you captive like a specimen. We offer you freedom, power, purpose. And what purpose would that be? Cleansing. Purification. Humans are a cancer on this world, consuming and destroying everything they touch. We are the cure. I looked at Dad, who was leaning on a chair to keep from falling, his strength rapidly ebbing. For 15 years, he had protected me, loved me, given me a chance to be more than just a hungry predator. He had made mistakes, betrayed me in the end, but he had done it all out of love. And if I refuse, then you will die with them. I took the syringe from my father's trembling hands. The dark liquid felt warm against my skin, pulsing in sync with my heartbeat. Valentina, don't do it, Dr. Morales begged. We don't know what the effects will be. Exactly, I smiled, removing the cap from the needle. You've spent years trying to understand me, control me, limit me. Maybe it's time to find out what happens when I stop repressing myself. I stuck the needle into my arm and injected the entire contents of the syringe. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. I felt as if molten lava was coursing through my veins, burning and rebuilding every cell in my body. My vision darkened for a moment, then returned sharper than ever. I could see the auras of vital energy around the people around me. Dad, a faint flickering flame about to extinguish. Dr. Morales, a yellow-green fire of scientific curiosity, and the 3 creatures, complete voids, black holes where there should have been life. Interesting, I said, my voice sounding different now, deeper, laden with an authority I hadn't possessed before. You're not like me, after all. You're parasites. You feed on life, but you have no life of your own. You don't understand, the lead creature hissed. We are evolution. We are the future. No. You are the past. I held out my hands toward the 3 figures. And I am something completely new. What happened next challenged everything I thought I knew about my powers. Instead of draining energy from the creatures, I began to radiate a force that repelled them violently. They screamed, a sound like breaking glass, and began to dissolve like shadows exposed to sunlight. "Impossible!" one of them managed to whisper before disappearing completely. When the lab fell silent again, I turned to Dad. He looked at me with a mixture of terror and pride. "What have I become?" I asked. "Something new," he replied, in a weak voice. "Something that never existed before." I approached him slowly, removing my gloves. For the first time in 15 years, I touched his skin directly without causing pain or drainage. Instead, I felt our energy balancing, stabilizing. "You're not going to die," I said softly. "I won't let you." "Valentina." "No, Dad. You saved me when I was a baby abandoned at a crime scene. You raised me, loved me, protected me even when I didn't deserve it. Now it's my turn to take care of you." Over the next few minutes, I carefully transferred some of my new life energy to him, watching the dark veins in his skin gradually disappear and his natural color return. Dr. Morales watched everything with wide eyes of scientific fascination. "Extraordinary. You're no longer draining energy. You're manipulating it, redistributing it." "Yes. And now I have a proposal for you, Doctor." "What proposal?" "Stop studying me like a specimen. Work with me as a partner. Let's find out together what else is out there. How many other creatures like those are hunting innocent humans?" I smiled, but now it was a genuine smile, not the predatory half-smile I had worn before. After all, apparently I'm the only thing that can stop them. "And in return?" "In return, you get a powerful ally and the chance to study phenomena that conventional science can't even imagine. And I get purpose, a reason to use my powers beyond mere personal satisfaction." Dr. Morales considered the proposal for a few seconds, then held out her hand. "Partners." I shook her hand firmly, feeling for the first time in my life a sense of completeness. I was no longer the predatory teenager who killed for pleasure, nor the isolated creature who saw herself as a monster. I was something new, something unique, a guardian, perhaps, or a monster hunter. "What happened to Lucas and the others?" I asked. "They'll make a full recovery. With your new powers, you can reverse the damage you caused." Over the next few weeks, I visited each of my former victims, silently healing the effects of the drain I had caused. Lucas was the first. I touched his hand in the hospital and watched his life energy return to normal. He woke up the next day, confused but completely healthy. "It was like a nightmare," he told the doctors, "but now I feel better than ever." Dad and I remained in Mar del Plata, working with Dr. Morales on a new organization dedicated to investigating and neutralizing supernatural threats. Our first mission would be to track down and eliminate the rest of the parasitic creatures that had attacked the city. "Are you sure about this?" Dad asked one morning as we prepared equipment for our first official hunt. "This isn't exactly the normal life I wanted for you." "Normal is overrated, Dad," I replied, adjusting the special gloves Dr. Morales had developed to amplify my new powers. "Besides, someone has to protect humans from the things that lurk in the darkness. And apparently I'm the only one qualified for the job." That night, as I patrolled the dark streets of La Perla, I reflected on my journey. I had started out as an abandoned child at a crime scene, become a predatory teenager who killed for pleasure, and now I was something completely new. A bridge between the human world and the supernatural. A guardian who protected the very people I had once considered prey. The smell of salt and fish from the harbor still lingered in the air, but now it no longer reminded me of opportunities to hunt innocent victims. Instead, it reminded me of home, a place where I had found purpose, family, and finally, redemption. As the first light of dawn began to brighten the horizon over the Atlantic, I smiled genuinely for the first time in my life. I had a lot of work ahead of me, many monsters to hunt, many lives to protect. But for the first time, I was looking forward to the future. I hope you enjoyed this story of supernatural redemption. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. And most importantly, leave a rating from 0 to 10 for this story in the comments. Your opinion is very important to me. Until the next supernatural adventure.